how to handle them within your club, So it's going to be a great discussion from our Indigenous Relations Committee. And then we're also going to have myself talk about a great resource on Rotary, on the Rotary Learning Center. And then in the secretary, we're going to have Joyce Wick talk about secretary basics. And we're also going to have Charlene talk about Club Runner, who's an amazing resource on Club Runner. And then we'll do a bit of wrap up and an update on what's happening for the year ahead from District Governor-elect Kurt. So Kurt, over to you, take it away.
Thank you very much, Rob. Rotary District 5360 gratefully acknowledges that we are within the traditional and ancestral territories and gathering place for diverse Indigenous peoples. Most of our district clubs and members within Southern Alberta are located in Treaty Number 7 territory, the traditional lands of the Blackfoot Nations, including Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai, the Tsuut'ina Nations, as well as the Stoney Nakoda First Nations. As the district includes parts of Saskatchewan, we are also acknowledged that these members are within the Treaty 4 and 6 areas. We appreciate all the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. We acknowledge the impacts and trauma the current events have brought for Indigenous peoples and communities regarding residential schools throughout Alberta, Saskatchewan, and across Canada. We want to acknowledge residential school survivors and the families who have been impacted as a result of the residential school system. Most importantly, we want to acknowledge the children who are taken too soon. Our district is actively listening and learning on the journey of reconciliation. As Rotarians, we are guided by the four-way test to seek truth and fairness and to strive for outcomes that are beneficial to all concerned. We trust this test will aid us in this journey with our Indigenous neighbors. And back to you, Rob, and I'm going to allow Mary to.
Are we ready? Can I share my screen now? Or shall I just use the PowerPoint presentation that you've already loaded up there, Kurt? Doesn't matter either way.
You should be able to share your screen, Mary.
Okay.
Give it a go, Mary.
All right, here we go.
Excellent. That worked.
So far, so good. Okay, let's take this up to the top.
Oh, you're going to start with questions, are you?
Well, it's always a good place to start. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our session this morning. We are excited to be together and happy to invite any questions as we go along through this presentation. So let's start with, why do we have a crisis plan in our district? Well, back in 2022, Rotary International requested that all Rotary districts across our globe come up with a crisis policy for their district. We were happy to get that through in June of 2022, so that our crisis management policy was adopted by our district board under the leadership of District Governor Martin Parnell. Following Martin's year, we created a plan to go forward with our clubs and to make sure that all of our clubs were aware not only of the district policy, but to also have a plan for their own clubs in the event that something might happen. And so this organization happened under the leadership of District Governor Steve Levitt. And with Steve's leadership, we are now at a place where we can talk about having a club plan in the event that something might go sideways. So let's talk about, what do we talk about when we're thinking about a crisis? Well, a crisis in this context would be any kind of criminal activity in connection with a Rotary activity. Any kind of financial or legal wrongdoing with a Rotary activity, any kind of non-compliance with legal or Rotary international policy, any natural disaster that would happen during a Rotary event, heaven forbid, or any kind of action or inaction in connection with Rotary that could result in an injury, not only to a person, result in a financial or property damage, a data breach, or other kind of situation that would damage the membership or public image of Rotary. So everyone's fairly clear, I think, on what we're talking about when we're talking about a crisis. So why have a plan? Well, to be honest, none of us want to have a crisis happen in our club, in an event that we might be running as a Rotary project. But honestly, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So when something goes sideways, it's always good to have a plan to follow to make sure that the club is in control, not only of what happens during the crisis, the aftermath after the crisis, the follow-up, and to just make sure that everything is well managed when something is going sideways. I know that in my life, when things go sideways, it's always nice to make sure that you're following a plan and that you're not forgetting anything. And it's also for the good of Rotary. So I think that's fairly clear why we're together and why a plan at your club level is so very important. All right, let's talk about who to include in the club plan. Well, club and district emergency contact information, cell phones, email addresses. Oh, I think I have my little friend. Are you going to come and join us? I have my 2.5-year-old grandson today. So this is William, and William, you're going to join our meeting this morning. So let's talk a little bit more about who to include in the club plan. So we've talked about the club and the district emergency contact people. That includes your club president, your president-elect, your club protection officer. If youth is involved, it's important to have youth contacts, the parents of the youth involved, host families if it's an exchange student, etc. The district governor-elect, district governor nominee, and the district youth protection officer are also key people to have the contact information of. Local authorities like your local police, whether it's city police, whether it's the RCMP, EMS, fire department, witnesses to the event, and media contacts. All right, let's talk about how to plan your club crisis. I've created a customized template for our club in Olds, but it's really important that you come up with your own plan that's going to be appropriate for your club. And there's 3 clubs listed on the screen who've already created a club plan for their club. And if you're interested in speaking to the leaders in these clubs to get a copy or to talk about the process they included in creating their club plan, I would certainly encourage you to reach out to the University of Calgary Rotaract Club, the Rotary Club of Red Deer Sunrise, and the Rotary Club of Calgary. And as I mentioned, all of these clubs have currently created a crisis plan for their club. I want to show you a little bit about what we've done in Olds. So I'm going to just open up this link. And these documents are all available for you after today's presentation. And I think what I'd like to do is to get, perhaps Charlene could upload these documents onto our district website so that everyone can take a look at these. And I'd encourage you to modify them to make sure that they fit for your situation. So here we are, a club crisis plan. And at the very top of this document, there's areas where you can fill in your current club president, president-elect, which is very important in the event that you cannot reach your club president. It's always good to have somebody who can actually help you out with making sure that the right people are contacted, your club protection officer, and then of course the district leadership. Names, cell phone numbers, and email addresses. The rest of this document talks about the importance of a club crisis plan, how to prevent a crisis, club reporting guidelines, and we'll get into that in a moment. District reporting guidelines. Rotary International looks to our district leadership in the event that a club crisis happens. So it is legally the responsibility of the district governor to ensure that all crises are managed appropriately. So this falls on District Governor Steve Levitt in the event that something happens to go sideways. Hopefully nothing ever does, but it's always good to have a plan in the event that something might happen. This document talks about what to do in the event of an emergency, which again is fairly straightforward, common knowledge, if you will, but it helps us to remember that in the event of a club situation, it's key to include your district leadership so that they're aware of what happened and they're aware of what media contact has already occurred. The district governor is the spokesperson for the district, or he or she would appoint someone if they are unable to do that role. It's absolutely critical that the district governor takes a leadership role in this event. Resolution after the event is very important because following up with the individuals involved and perhaps the witnesses as well is all something that needs to be considered in the event of a crisis. There's a report that needs to be included, of course, and this document kind of outlines all of the steps to writing the report. And then at the very end of this document, I made a very simplistic list of all of the individuals and key points that need to be included in a crisis management document. So I'm just going to scroll through this very quickly, and as I mentioned before, you can certainly take a look at it a little bit more at your leisure when you have time to consider what your club would look like in creating their own plan. Rotary is an amazing organization, and when people reach out with ideas, other people can take those ideas and make them much more wonderful. So my thanks to Minnow Mitchell for creating this document, which is what she created for the Calgary Rotary Club in downtown Calgary. This document is taken from the original one that I had, and it looks a lot better than mine. So I really appreciate the work that Minnow and Kurt put into creating this document. It's very straightforward. It happens to include all of the information that you'll need in your reporting form. And as I mentioned before, easily transferred from one club to a next. Okay. So once you've created a crisis plan for your club, and I would encourage you to include all of the members in your club in this conversation. In the event that something goes sideways, all members of your club must know that their next step is to report to the club president, so that the club president can take control of the situation. Once you have a club plan that works for you, the next step is to share it with your club. Make sure that everyone knows what the plan is, has some buy-in into the plan, and make sure that they know where to find it. File it somewhere on your club documents where people can take a look at it. It should be updated every year. The district leadership changes every year. Club leadership changes every year. So it's key to have those contacts updated with current cell phones and current email addresses. So make sure that you do that every year. It's not necessary to share your club plan with the district. We are hoping as district leaders that each club will have a plan, we'll keep it in a safe spot, and we'll refer to it every year for updating. Any questions? That was a really quick overview of everything, but I wanted to give some time for questions in the event that people had any kind of feedback or comments. And I'm going to just go on and stop sharing my screen so that I can see all of your wonderful faces. And let's have a conversation. Keith, your hand is up. Am I able to talk to Keith?
Hi, Mary.
Keith? Yes.
Question about the kinds of crises that may have happened in the past. Can you give us an example of something that this crisis management plan would have covered?
Okay. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but let's come up with something like you're having a Rotary event and a horrible storm comes through and I don't know, something goes sideways, somebody is missing in the storm and you can't find them. something like you're taking your Rotary Club skiing in the mountains and somebody has a car accident and there's injuries involved and the police are involved and there's maybe someone passes away. I mean, that's a horrible situation, but in the event that something goes horribly sideways, and I'm thinking particularly, Keith, if the media is involved, we want to make sure that the right information is given to the media from a public image perspective and from a legal perspective as well.
Okay.
Did you hear about the Rotary event that happened yesterday on the radio? You know, some of the times these events get out into the media before the right people have contacted the people to say that the information is correct.
Thank you, Mary.
Mary, there's a question in the chat.
Yes, sorry.
Mary, there's a question in the chat.
Yes.
Wondering if the old plan is available for sharing.
Yes, Bev, I can certainly make that available. We do need to present it to our board. That has not yet happened. So I just need to make sure that our board is okay with that before I do that. But following their approval, I'm sure that we could share that document. We hope that nothing ever happens, but I really think that if something does happen, it's good to have a good chain of command and to talk about it at your club. I'm from a very small community, and in Olds, the local reporter knows who I am and knows that I'm a member of Rotary. So instead of calling the club president, who he may not know, he'd probably call me, and I probably wouldn't necessarily know there was a crisis. So it's really important that those kinds of calls get directed to the right person, which would be the club president, who would be on top of whatever the situation was, to speak directly to the media with the current situation in mind.
So I'm going to ask Bill Maines to unmute himself. He said he has an example to share.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Bill.
Hi, we have an example almost every year where all of the clubs in Lethbridge do an event in the summertime at the Dragon Boat Festival.
Great.
And it happens during thunderstorm season. So one of the things that we're very aware of, and we've had to do it a couple times, is shut down the event. And of course, at that point, we have hundreds of attendees from the community. So that's just part of, life goes on, weather happens. You have to be prepared for it. So, yeah, I think in 20 years, we probably shut it down, I'm going to say 2 or 3 times because of the imminent thunder and lightning storms.
I see that Bev has another question in the chat about a district PR person for crisis. Kurt, I'm not sure if you're able to answer that, or District Governor Steve, I see that you're on the call as well this morning. I'm not sure if there's anyone been appointed to that role or whether it would go to the district governor and district governor-elect to work their way through the situation. I'm not sure if you have any comment, either Kurt or Steve.
So I can comment. The answer is the first contact is the district governor. Second is just if they're not available, the next contact's the district governor-elect. And it's up to them to evaluate and decide the further actions, which maybe include involving a PR person to deal with it. Steve,
I like that answer, Kurt.
Perfect. Okay, is there any last questions for Mary? Is there any last questions for Mary?
Mary, it's Doug.
Yes.
MacDonald. One simple thing that probably at some point we need to think about is some kind of training for club presidents on how to respond to media inquiries and how to deal with that, because that's, from experience, I know people in my work world who it really would have been better if they hadn't said anything. And talking to people, I know everybody has an opinion, but walking people through what's the process for and it's not just talking to the media, but it's talking to people in general about what went on at an event.
I think that's a really important idea, Doug. And I think that if the district can identify some individuals who could take that on as a leadership role and provide that in a workshop scenario, maybe there could be a session for president-elects to gather on a Zoom call and to go through that one specific subject matter, because that is absolutely key in speaking to the media and others. I heard that my friend was in a Rotary event and something went sideways. Well, you're not necessarily going to be speaking to, the general public when they pick up the phone to you. So I think that's a really important idea.
So just as a comment, one of the things in the plan is for the president or the club not to speak to the media regarding an incident. So just pointing that out.
That should come from the district leadership.
Correct. Now, having said that, speaking to the media in general is a skill that can be learned, and that's a great suggestion for a further session.
Yeah, I think it's Brian here. I'm not sure that deferring to the district as out of hand is the right approach. There are club specifics that are going to be have to be dealt with by club officers, the president, and I'm not sure having it removed by a degree is the right way to go.
I guess a lot of it would really depend on the situation and the complexity of the situation as well. The district leadership certainly needs to be included in the knowledge of the crisis. And then I think what would most likely happen would be a conversation between the club president and the district governor as far as how to manage the crisis locally and from a district perspective.
Yeah, I agree with what Mary just said.
Yeah.
There would be a discussion, and maybe after the discussion, yes, it could go back to the president or the club to manage. But that discussion is important.
And that's why the district governor-elect and the president-elect are also included in that contact list, because in the event that the DG happens to be on a holiday or is not available, then it's key to have the district governor-elect and even the district governor nominee in your contact list so that somebody at district is aware of what's going on. And also in your club as well. Club presidents are allowed to take holidays from time to time. And so a club president-elect is another key individual to have on that contact list.
Having many years ago taken a course on communications during crisis management, all I can say is that really it is required. And I took this course, and 2 weeks later, one of the participants had to deal with the media in a way. And how you deal with the media either makes you look like a hero or makes you look like the villain, and it can go very quickly to the villain side, and it can go very quickly based on what you think is a fair and innocent comment. But the media love to find ways to make a headline out of it. So yeah, really good crisis management and communication in crisis management has been worthwhile. And as I said, I have watched the success of that training with one of the participants within a couple of weeks, and quite honestly, he looked like he was the guy trying to really haven't been done the right thing. And the other people that were were interviewed, I guess, in it, who hadn't had the training, they kind of looked like the village idiots and the bad boys out of the situation. So yeah, good crisis management is worthwhile.
And let's hope that we don't ever have to use it.
Exactly, but sort of knowing some of the key points of how and what to communicate, and how and what to communicate, and also what not to communicate, is really key.
Super. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate your comments.
Hi, Mary. It's Bev here. I
Yes.
make one comment. I know, deferring to district, I have been involved in several crises down in Drumheller when I was a site leader at the hospital.
Hmm.
They do need the face of the person on the ground in the. And
Yes.
so, yes, I certainly taking the media training. We were all given media training, but they're right in your face. Sometimes you don't have the option of saying just no comment, because what your community is looking for is reassurance.
Yes, and sometimes no comment is exactly not the answer that you're wanting to provide to the media either. So I think this is a really, sorry, go ahead.
Just about, I'm just a little nervous.
One of the things that came out of our, one of the things that came out of our training was that the words "no comment" are translated as "I'm guilty."
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think this is a really good conversation, Kurt and Steve. I think this is a great idea for a further training session specifically on media relations and dealing with the crisis in that context. So I think incoming presidents would appreciate some further guidance and direction on these kinds of conversations. So I think that would be a good next step as well for the district, if able. It sounds like we've got some really key Rotarians who could provide a lot of information from a media conversation.
I agree, Mary. I've taken that as down as a note to follow up on. So yes, thank you for that suggestion, wherever it was that made it. That's an excellent suggestion.
So with that, I think that's a great final point, Mary. So thank you so much for that excellent presentation. Obviously, we just opened the door to more to follow. So a great start to the day. So thank you very much, Mary. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
So moving on, I'd like to now introduce Doug MacDonald. Doug's going to now share his screen and take over, and he's going to take the next 20 minutes to talk to us about updates to the vulnerable persons policy. So Doug, without further ado, take it away.
Just a second. Go to that one. Share.
Can I just interrupt while you're working things out, Doug?
Sure.
Joyce, can you turn off your video until you are presenting? It's really hard watching the flickering. Thanks so much.
So Rob, you can see my shared screen now.
Yeah, you're good, Doug.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. Thanks everybody for a few minutes this morning to just for a quick update on where we are with protecting vulnerable people in the district. It fits nicely with what Mary was just talking about. Mary was talking about what happens being prepared when things go wrong, whereas this is about helping us stick with a plan to prevent things from happening. So just really quickly, why is this important? It's important because our job is to protect the vulnerable people we come in contact with in Rotary. It's important because it's the law in Alberta. It's our job as an organization to do that. It's also RI policy. For over 15 years now, RI has had a policy primarily dealing with youth protection, but has always referred to the fact that we have other people that we're dealing with in this. And I guess ultimately it's to protect Rotary, because whether it's protecting a reputation, it's what we have to do. We've been working with this definition of who's vulnerable. Vulnerable person is anyone who's unable to take care of or protect themselves. It's kids, it's adults, and it's up to us to identify who we're working with, who fits into this category of people who can't protect themselves from harm, attack, neglect, or exploitation. But we do understand that we're talking about people who are in our Rotary activities. We're not responsible for the whole world. And that's why we started talking about kids, and then we started talking about, well, there's other people, there's seniors we deal with. And that's why we've gone with talking about protecting vulnerable people rather than just talking about protecting kids. Our plan in the district has 4 elements to it. The first part was helping establish a policy and then an education program and an advocacy program to keep this in front of everybody that this is something we do. And ultimately, and hopefully not too often, but we have to be prepared to respond when something does happen. But if we spend more time on educating people and advocating to keep Rotary as a safe place for vulnerable people, we mitigate the number of times we're going to have to respond to an incident. So the policy that we've adopted has 5 key elements to it. So the first part of the policy is our job is to prevent harm. To make Rotary a safe place. One of the things that comes out of work done by the International Red Cross and lots of organizations now is it's also our job to ensure that everybody in our program understands their rights and how to protect themselves. The folks at Red Cross and Respect Group will tell you that the most important thing we can teach vulnerable people, whether it's kids or seniors we're working with, is when something doesn't feel comfortable to speak up and keep speaking up until somebody listens. Because sadly, we know that when a child starts to report abuse, 7 adults have to hear them speak before somebody does something about it. The first 6 adults just assume it couldn't be true. So the next part of this is the part around volunteer screening. And I've been saying this to several clubs. The key thing here is we're saying that everybody who has direct and unsupervised contact with vulnerable people in Rotary programs must be screened before they work with vulnerable people. The key there is they have direct unsupervised contact. They have authority. They're in a position of trust. There's all sorts of things we do in Rotary with vulnerable people where we don't have direct and unsupervised contact. We don't have trust. We're not given trust for these people, or we don't have authority over them. Those aren't the roles we're talking about. We're talking about people like inbound and outbound exchange officers. We're talking about RILA volunteers. We're not talking about people who are going and singing Christmas carols at a senior's home. Vulnerable screening has 5 key steps to it. And this is just rigor from everybody who's been working with volunteer screening for the last 25 years. It involves an application and an interview, checking references, collecting a vulnerable sector check, which is an enhanced police record check, and providing training. Everybody who's working with volunteers, working with vulnerable people, follows these 5 steps. So what we're doing in Rotary is no different than what literally everybody else is asking their volunteers to do. What we are doing is attempting to apply more rigor and give more authority to the clubs to manage this. We're also now using 2 systems to do this. For a number of years, we used the Youth Exchange Administrative Hub, and we tried to use it with all of our programs. The folks behind that system kept telling us, no, there's another way to do this. So we're now saying there are 2 systems for clubs to use, the Youth Administrative Hub and the Volunteer Management System. And we're in the process of teaching people how those 2 systems work. The new system is for everything but youth exchange, whether it's RILA, RIPEN, RAYAC, new generations, whether it's a club stay in school program, whether it's a club program for driving seniors, whatever it is, that's the system we want to use for all of the volunteers, saving youth exchange for those people. In terms of where we are, we've asked the clubs to adopt the district policy and procedures. If you want to write your own, you're welcome to. But the first time we did this, a couple of clubs tried, and then it said, why can't we just adopt the district policy? So that's what we're asking clubs to do. We're asking clubs and district committees to appoint their protection officer. We're just kicking off another round of protection officer training in the next couple of weeks. We are going to be, thanks to Bob Golan on the district committee, introducing some interviewer training to help interviewers do that part of the job. We're starting to introduce people. We've already got the club protection officers. We're connecting them to our systems. And we're updating our response team and our response plan for what happens if something goes wrong And again, Bob Goland and Patricia Arengo are taking care of that for us. People keep saying, I'm not sure what to do. Shoot me an email, whether it's Bob Goland or Carol Graham or Patricia Arengo or Rick Eisted on the district committee, or we've got a couple of non-Rotarians like Lee Tunstall, who's a former Rotarian, who are providing us with some advice. We're happy to come talk to clubs, do it on Zoom, do it in person, and really just help people understand how the process works, and we'll sit down with club protection officers one-on-one. So with that, anybody have any questions?
If there's any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask Doug. Or put in the chat, whichever's.
I just have one quick question. Has there ever been an opportunity to do the training as a club rather than individually?
The best advice from the people who do this is you can do that, but you have to have a test. The problem we were having is clubs were doing it, and my own club did it, and they helped each other answer the questions. And at the end of the day, when they went back and did a check with them afterwards, nobody'd really picked it up. Like, you can do it, but it's way more rigorous than just what a lot of clubs want to do is, oh, we'll take a Tuesday at lunch and we'll show the presentation. We'll get everybody to kind of answer the questions and we're done. And when you talk to people like the Red Cross and the Respect Group and the people who are the experts in the field, they really believe the online training is the better way to do it, because the individual has to sit down, they have to go through it, and they have to answer the questions without assistance. And that's really where they learn.
Yeah, unfortunately for some of our members, that's a restriction.
It is, and there's nothing wrong with a club protection officer sitting down with a volunteer and helping them walk through the process. But like I said, I know I've watched it in a couple of clubs where, you know, they said, sure, everybody passed. Well, there was 8 out of 12 people didn't answer a question and really almost slept through the presentation. And yeah, it's nice to check all the boxes. And I used to work for an organization that was big on check the box. But every time I do that 45-minute session, there's something I pick up. And I've been doing this stuff for 25 years. And it's so protection officers can help people do the process, but we do need people to go through and answer it individually so that we know that they've got comprehension.
Okay. Thanks.
Hey, Doug, it's Martin from Canmore. We're going to be looking for a new club protection officer. Is there some documentation that can be shared?
Yes, it is. We did send it out. I'll send it out again. It's on the, Charlene, where is it on the district website?
I can search and find
okay,
it.
But actually Charlene and I are meeting Monday and we're doing some updates on the district screening page, and I'll make sure that gets a little more prominent view, because it is there. There is a job description for the protection officer, and Rick Eisted has been sending stuff out as people get on board. One of the neat things with the new volunteer management system is in May, June, we'll actually be able to send president-elects a message, and just an automatic message, and tell them, please tell us who your protection officer is for next year. And then we just automatically bring them into the process.
Great, thanks.
So Doug, there's a question in the chat. Does each club have to have a protection officer, or is it just up to the district?
No, especially if you're involved in youth exchange, you must have a club protection officer. And if you've got a major, you know, like I look at Calgary downtown and clubs like that have major programs, you need a club protection officer. One of the things that I've been saying to smaller clubs is having a look at your club and at at what you're involved with is the first thing. Like, you know, if your club says, well, we just don't do anything with vulnerable people where we have a position of trust, where we have authority, you know, we just go out and sing Christmas carols at my club does that at a program. Then you probably don't. But if you're going to be involved in youth exchange or offering a program, even if you've got somebody driving kids to Ripen, those people need to be screened before they go. I have said to some smaller clubs that there's a possibility that this could be the club secretary that could do this, because it's just another. It's not a big job. This isn't a full-time gig. This can be for a smaller club. This could be something that could be added to the club secretary's job, so that because they're the ones keeping the membership records anyway. And this is just another form of membership record management.
And Doug, do you, I'm assuming you do, but just there was a great point by Brian in the chat, how he said he was going to invite you to the club to talk about this. So I'm assuming you do club visits on this topic.
For Brian, for a small fee, yes. Just, I think as Martin and let's see, I've been in Drumheller, I've been in Canmore or Cochrane. I'm supposed to do a Zoom with one of the Red Deer clubs. So yeah, and there's more than just me. So Rick Eisted and Bob Golan and Carol Graham, Patricia Rango, several of us are prepared to do that. Oh, Brian, buying lunch is always a good way to get on site.
There you go.
So Doug, I had a question. You
Yep.
spoke about upcoming training for the club protection officer. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, I sort of can, and I just realized I was searching madly for an email from Rick Eisted that he just sent out, and I can't find it. So in the next couple of weeks, we're running a Zoom meeting, a Zoom session for club protection officers, where we're going to walk them through the new volunteer management system. We've had one session back before Christmas, and so it's just going to become a regular thing we do. So as new people come aboard, we're going to walk them through the new system, as well as we're going to run one for the clubs who are doing youth exchange, because the YAY system is really where the host parents and the participants are managed.
Perfect. Any last questions for Doug? All right, Doug, thank you so much. Really appreciate you taking time and giving us an update. I know you have to take off after this, so thank you for joining us.
Some of us have to go back to work.
There you go. So with that, everybody, again, just being conscious, as much as it's Zoom, we like to make sure you have a bit of a break away from the screen. So let's take 10 minutes. It's now 9:45. So we'll be back at 9:55. We're 5 minutes ahead of schedule, and will allow us time to just create the breakout rooms, and we'll get ready for our breakout sessions for coming up. So 10 minutes, be back at 9:55. Thanks, everyone.